Civil rights activists faced a lot of scrutiny after World War II because you have the beginning of the Cold War between Russia and the United States. Capitalism versus communism. Who's going to control the world, right? Which economic system is going to reign supreme? And so you have the Cold War taking place for a number of years after World War II. And so during this time, you have civil rights activists being labeled as communist. And some of them did have ties to the Communist Party or had been communists in the past, but not all. All right, and in this way, this was a way for the U.S. government to basically fight against civil rights and labor rights activists because they were being labeled communist. Right, and particularly for those who are not American citizens, this could be a real problem. A couple of acts passed by the federal government worked against illegal aliens who were involved in civil rights or labor rights organizations because they were tied to communism. Okay, let's talk about a couple of examples. One, the Internal Security Act of 1950. So the Internal Security Act basically made it to where you could not become a citizen if you were connected to the Communist Party. All right, and say you had been naturalized as an American citizen, well, within 5 years of that naturalization, if it's proven that you were connected to the Communist Party, your citizenship could be taken away from you. All right. Another federal act that worked against illegal aliens was the McCarran-Walter Act. The McCarran-Walter Act made it to where illegal aliens could be deported if they were connected to communist organizations or even if they advocated for communist ideology, right? And so this could be used as a tool against labor rights and civil rights activists, right? A lot of leaders in civil rights organizations were illegal aliens, right? And so this leadership could be taken out because of the McCarran-Walter Act, right? They could be deported, and that happened. An example of this, of someone who was attacked because of their affiliation with the Communist Party, was Robert Galvin. Robert Galvin is out of San Diego, California, and he was an illegal alien, right? He wasn't an American citizen, but he was heavily involved in labor rights and civil rights. He was a part of the union movement, and he came under attack. And he was going to be deported. Basically, he was, brought before a court. He had to go through all legal proceedings. Eventually, he was not deported because he was found to be, a good American citizen, even though he did have ties to the Communist Party in the past. So, yeah, Galvin had to fight against the U.S. government because he was being attacked because having so-called affiliations with the Communist Party, but maybe the attacks were coming because he was such a prominent member of the union movement. All right. But Galvin didn't just have to fight against the U.S. government. He also had to fight against the Ku Klux Klan, right? The KKK, which was heavily active in San Diego at this time. The KKK harassed and murdered a lot of Mexicans who were crossing the border, Mexicans who may have spoken out against their employers, right? If they spoke back to their employer, maybe they might get attacked by the KKK. And so murders actually happen, right? People were buried alive, heads were cut off sometimes and put up on posts in public areas to try to scare Mexicans. Mexican women who were migrating into the country were found by the KKK and were raped and murdered at times. And so Galvin himself was actually threatened by the KKK a number of times, right? He was chased by them one time. Some dynamite was found in his car, and he actually spoke out against the KKK. He would go on Spanish-speaking radio stations and let the community know what the KKK was doing and warning them and trying to protect them against the KKK. Right? And so you have racist organizations like the KKK, as well as the United States government working against leaders in the civil rights and labor rights movements and using communism during the Cold War as an excuse to deport them or to harass them and stop them from their efforts. Another victim of the Red Scare being, this fear that communists were going to take over the United States or bring about a revolution. Another victim of the Red Scare was Anna Correa Berry. Correa Berry was a Mexican American, right? So she was a U.S. citizen, but charges were brought up on her because of the Smith Act. Smith Act, this is a federal law that basically made it illegal to be a part of the Communist Party. Right, you could get jail time or maybe have to pay a fine. The FBI actually sent spies to watch Correa Berry, and ultimately she ended up going to court because she violated the Smith Act because of her connection to the Communist Party. And she had to go through legal proceedings for about 20 years, right? Talk about harassment. Eventually, she was able to get off. Later on, you would see less and less Mexican Americans involved with the Communist Party, right? Their membership starts to decline for a number of reasons. One of them is because of intimidation, right? Intimidation by the U.S. government. You have, the Correa Berry case is an example of that, where someone's intimidated for being a part of the Communist Party and threatened with jail time or with fines. You also have the issue of deportation we were talking about earlier. You also have an important speech by one of the leaders in the Russian Communist Party, Nikita Khrushchev, during this time. Khrushchev spoke out against former leader Joseph Stalin, leader of Russia. And Stalin had ruled Russia for a long period of time, leader of the whole communist movement. But Stalin also had been involved in a number of purges where hundreds of thousands of Russians were killed if they were not loyal or seen as being loyal to Stalin, right? And so you basically have a shift in the Communist Party, and this may have brought down the morale of Mexican Americans who were interested in the Communist Party, where you see these shifts and these changes, and when you find out that, oh, the leader of the Communist Party was doing all these horrible things, Joseph Stalin, right? And so that may also have contributed to a decline in membership. And also, finally, some Mexican Americans were not satisfied with the way that the Communist Party dealt with the issues of race. It seemed like they weren't really committed to bringing about racial equality. They brought up the issue of race sometimes, but only for like political purposes. They didn't really see the Communist Party trying to make actual change in terms of racial equality. And so for these reasons, you've seen the membership of Mexican Americans in the Communist Party declining over time.